Let's not forget that Memorial Day, which we celebrate on Monday, belongs to the foes of racism. The day people place flowers on the graves of fallen veterans was founded by the enemies of the Ku Klux Klan. Memorial Day belongs to the democratic traditions of the American people. It sprang out of the war against the hooded terrorists of the South who sought to reestablish slavery on American soil. American right-wingers and false patriots try to hide the real story of the birth of the Memorial Day in 1868. At the time, Major General John A. Logan, the father of Memorial Day, was in the thick of the fight against the Ku Klux Klan when he issued the first call for May 30th celebrations. General Logan was the head of the Grand Army of the Republic, the first Civil War Veterans Association. He was one of the outstanding heroes of that 4-year-long struggle. Logan's fight. General Logan was a citizen soldier, enlisting as a private in the Michigan Regiment. He fought in the First Great Battle of Bull Run in 1861. While rich families like the Rockefellers, the Morgans, and the Carnegies were buying substitutes to bleed in the stead, Logan was wounded at Fort Donelson. By 1862, he was a major general, and in 1863, he was marching through Georgia at the head of a division of anti-slavery troops. Victory won and the slave owners smashed, Logan and his soldiers came home in triumph. And then an assassin's bullet laid President Abraham Lincoln low, and the small-minded Vice President, Andrew Johnson, became president. Logan returned to Congress, from which the war had taken him, to make sure that the slave owners would not slip back into power. They began to slip back in with the help of Andrew Johnson, who sabotaged the fight against the rising Ku Klux Klan. Logan believed in showing no mercy to the rebellious slave owners who organized mobs to whip and lynch black and white Republicans, then the anti-slavery party in the South. His speeches were full of bitter denunciations of the slave masters. Following the lead of Thaddeus Stevens, the great anti-slavery Republican of Pennsylvania, Logan was soon in a clash with President Johnson. The fight for power between President and Congress came to a head when Johnson fired Secretary of War Stanton, who was directing the military to fight against the Klan. On the first Memorial Day, Stevens and Logan and their fellow progressives almost had Johnson fired in the impeachment trial that followed. Just one Senate vote saved the little man's job in the spring of 1868, President Andrew Johnson. While that fight was underway, General Logan saw that the minds of the masses of the American people must be reawakened to the ideals for which the Civil War against slavery was fought. In the thick of the impeachment trial against Johnson, he helped work out the idea of a Memorial Day to honor the heroes of the bloody battlefields of Bull Run, Shiloh, Gettysburg, and 100 other theaters of war. All over the North on May 30th, 1868, Americans marched to the graves of their veteran dead, strewing flowers and singing the battle hymn of the Republic, as well as John Brown's Body and other Civil War songs. War-orphaned children were the center of the celebration at Arlington National Cemetery near Washington. Memorial Day helped serve the political purposes of the progressives in Congress. It helped them generate mass support for the fight to reconstruct Southern political life on a democratic basis. It helped postpone, for a few years at least, the return of the Southern oligarchy and the overthrow of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. For years to come, Memorial Day speeches expressed some of the purest ideals of American democracy. At this annual celebration, people like Oliver Wendell Holmes, not yet a Supreme Court justice, voiced their opposition to slavery. And men like Logan himself warned against the suppression of liberty in the South. At a Memorial Day celebration in 1882, Colonel Robert G. Ingersoll, great veteran of the Civil War, said of American liberty, "Today, we reverently thank the abolitionists. Earth has produced no grander men, no nobler women. The radicals of the South said, no union without slavery. And the radicals of the North replied, no union without liberty." The Northern radicals were right. Upon the great issue of free homes for free men, a president was elected by the free states. The South appealed to the sword and raised the standard of revolt. For the first in history, the oppressor rebelled. The first shot liberated the North. Constitutions, statutes, and decisions compromises platforms and resolutions made, passed, and ratified, and the interest of slavery became a mere legal lies. Millions instantly resolved that freedom should not perish and that slavery should not live. Millions of our brothers, our sons, our fathers, our husbands answered to the nation's call. Referring to the flags planted on the soldiers' graves, Colonel Ingersoll said, "This flag means free hands, a free government, and universal education. It means," he said, "that Americans have the right to change their government when they want to. The right-wing extremists and fascists of today would suppress these Memorial Day ideals. But we will answer them this Memorial Day as we pledge ourselves anew to freedom. The traditions of our revolutionary history are on our side in the fight against fascism, and Memorial Day is our day."
All right.
Bonnie, come on.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is traveling out of the dead where the grapes of wrath store. He has loosed the faithful line of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marginal in the beauty of the lilies. Christ was born across the sea, with the glory in his bosom that transfigured you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us live to make men free. Walk on his
Ms. Thompson, please.
in D.C.
Please.
with the United Medical Center.
Yes.
Some people
There
have
we
been,
go.
some people have been engaged with that. But there was a scramble a few months ago because Vincent Gray was trying to move forward with a proposal supposedly to plant a hospital east of the river. And so in planning the hospital, it was clear in that proposal that the workers that were currently at, the nurses and all that was currently at the United Medical Center would not be protected in the new hospital. In other words, they would be knocked out. And also Howard University Medical School would not have their students at the new so-called medical center. And then as folks began to discuss it, they began to realize that what they were referring to as sort of a new medical center was a glorified clinic. Because there would not be long-term services at the new hospital. Instead, George Washington Hospital at their current location on Pennsylvania on K Street, that area, could expand its beds without any criteria. Because right now the way it's set up is you're supposed to go for and apply for what they call a needs assessment in order to be able to justify the number of beds and the services and that type of stuff. The proposal exempted George Washington from that, so George Washington can make the decision and the determination how many beds they're going to add at their sites. Now keep in mind, for George Washington, those are paying beds, right? And so they're going to make money off of those beds. Meanwhile, they claim that they will open up the hospital if they have this ability to expand their own hospital. And as I pointed out, the hospital would not be truly a hospital in east of the river. But what happened was a couple weeks ago, Gray pulled off the table the agreements that were made in reference to Howard medical students and the agreements that were made in terms of bringing the workers over to the new site. Basically, took it off the table, reversed the decision, and basically pushed forth with the proposal. The mayor in her budget had called for $40 million for United Medical Center, which is in existence. He decided that they were going to cut the $40 million to $15 million, which would basically kill off the hospital. And also now there's no agreement that the new hospital, when it comes online in 2023, there's no agreement that they would take, in a sense, the staff that is at the old hospital. And in turn, George Washington would be able to expand its hospital at its current site. I asked Vince Gray, I said, you got to tell me what happened. And I walked with him to the elevator to his office. And his comment was that he met with the CEO of George Washington Hospital. And the CEO said to him that if he was forced to eat the deal of Howard and those workers, that the deal was off. And so that he was not going to do the deal if he was forced to take it. And so in agreement, Gray pulled it all off the table. Basically giving the hospital everything that they want. Now keep in mind, what's serious about that is we've lost Providence Hospital, and that's gone, and now you're cutting down to bare minimum and probably beyond survival of the United Medical Center without a hospital being in place that's going to replace the services. Now some of y'all remember when we took on the battle around DC General. And I was reminding people that the argument was the same. All DC General is mismanaged, and we need to do something about DC General. You remember that, Lucy? All the same. So now the argument is the same thing. United Medical Center is mismanaged, and we need to do something about that. So it's the same argument. When DC General closed, all of a sudden, all of the emergency rooms to the existing hospitals exploded in terms of the people there. And I know because when I go and visit folks, very often I start in the emergency room. And so one incident I remember sort of shortly after that, Zilla, was this. There was a 90-year-old lady from our church who I went and I saw, she was on the gurney in the emergency room, not even in a room, mind you. She was in a gurney in the hallway. And so I stayed with her a little bit, and prayed with her a little bit, and left. So I said I was gonna come back in 2 days and visit her in a room. So I came back, not the next day, but the day after. And she was still in the hallway, in the emergency room, on a gurney.
This sounds like Nigeria. That's not good.
Well, this is what's happened to medical care because it's overloaded. So that was when DC General closed. So now you got Providence closed. And then you're gonna have United Medical Center closed. And so basically what's happening is you have a few conglomerates that will be running all of the medical care in Washington, DC. Right? And we know that consolidation is dangerous in itself. On Tuesday, there's going to be a rally, 9 a.m. in front of the Wilson Building, just before the second vote on this budget. There's a lot of pressure right now on council members around trying to find the money, trying to find a way in which to restore funding, and that's going to continue to go on. But anybody who can be out there 9 o'clock at the Wilson Building, to be out there at 9 o'clock at the Wilson Building as we try to push this in the last legs of it, all right?
I will be there. I told DC